I live in Minnesota, United States, and today I would like to talk to you about some of my struggles with depression and suicidal thinking, in particular relating to the summer of 1994. So, and at that time in '94, I would have been 21 years of age. So, to give you a little background, I was born in 1972. Was born in rural southern Minnesota, and I grew up. I was the oldest of 7 kids, and again, it was rural. I lived on a hobby farm. But most of my exposure to farming was working on neighbors' farms. I started doing that at 10 years old, pulling weeds out of bean fields. The neighbors' farming environment, they raised, I should say, cattle, dairy cattle for milking. So we milked cows and raised hogs, and then soybeans and corn. It was a lot of hard physical work. It was good work for a boy, young man. It really was. And you were exposed to a lot of things. You were working with your hands. You're working with machinery. You're working with animals, of course. You're working in some construction. Something always needed to be repaired or built. I consider myself very fortunate to grow up working on a farm. I was the oldest of 7 kids. I didn't really get along with my parents after at a fairly young age. And so where I'm going with this is that spiritually, because I really didn't like my parents at that point in my life, I do get along with them great now, at least on my end. That's my opinion. So anyway, about 13 or 14 years of age, I quit believing in God. I guess I became an agnostic, and it was mostly because my parents did have quite a bit of faith, and so because they did believe in God and I didn't like them, I decided I was not going to believe in God just because I didn't like my parents at that time. May sound simplistic and foolish, but I guess that's the mind of a 13 or 14-year-old. Anyway, that's what I did. So, as a young, and then my teenage years, I did quite a bit of drinking. Kind of the partying thing, chasing girls, and also in the teenage years, unfortunately, I started to develop some pretty significant depression. I didn't really feel too good about myself, and I guess that's common with a lot of teenagers. Didn't really, a lot of this is in your own head, especially when you're younger. You don't have much. For whatever reason, a lot of people, teenagers, grow up without much. It's kind of cliche, but to say without much self-worth. Didn't really like myself too much. So, so depression was part of my teenage years, high school years. I graduated from high school in 1991, and I went to college. And the depression didn't get any better, and I continued to drink, which a couple drinks now that I personally don't have any problem with, but when I say drink, I mean partying, drinking an awful lot. So let me just say that depression, it got worse. And I often would tell people it felt like I don't know if I've told people this often, but I have described this before as being a kind of a lead weight feeling in my chest. That's how I came to describe it to people later in life. At the time, I was hanging around with a guy named, I'm just going to call him Dan. That's not even his real name. First name, isn't it? It's not even his real first name. But I think I want to protect the family's anonymity. So I was hanging around with Dan quite a bit. And we used to drink a lot. And one night we got this idea. We were at a party. Oh, it was a spring. It was a spring of 1994. Let's go on spring break. Let's go to South Padre Island in Texas. So we left the party. We went and packed a couple of duffel bags, and we just left in the middle of the night. And we drove down to South Padre Island. And mostly, I think you take I-35 from Minnesota all the way there almost. In fact, you might, you're basically on that freeway the entire ride. And we showed up, and it was really just a normal spring break scene. A lot of drinking, hanging out at a beach, talking to girls, bars late at night, whatever. It was just all standard, what you'd expect. And then it was time to leave after 3, 4, 5 days. I don't even know how long we were there. And as we were driving back, and this is going to sound strange, just bear with me. I think somewhere along the midway back, halfway back, maybe it was Oklahoma, maybe it was Kansas, I'm not sure. I don't know which state this was in. It just seems to me it was about halfway. Again, this was 1994, so I can't remember exactly which state, but I was driving back and I stopped at a gas station and went to fill up, and I went in the gas station and I just felt better. Bear with me. I started to feel, I'm going to use the word happy, in a way that I'd never really felt before. Just kind of, I'm going to say supernatural in a way, because I don't quite know how to describe it. And it was amazing. And I walked out of the gas station, I got in the car, and I kept driving, and I don't know how long the feeling lasted, how long it took to subside. And but that's what happened. And got back to Minnesota, and I was approached. I can't even remember how many classes I was taking. I must have been taking some classes, because I was approached at college, and some kids asked me if I wanted to sell encyclopedias door to door. And I thought about it, and it didn't really, if I remember right, it didn't really appeal to me very much. But it was going to be selling encyclopedias door to door, out of state. I think they told me East Coast. And that was the part that appealed to me. I was very miserable. I had this very bad depression. And so I thought, well, if I get out of state, maybe, as simple as it sounds, maybe I'll have another great experience like I had in that gas station driving back from South Padre Island. And so that was a very simple thought, but I signed up to sell encyclopedias door to door. And I ended up in the eastern part of the United States. And I think I will take a little break here because this is probably going to be long-winded and start again later.